Good afternoon and welcome to my channel, Watercolor Painting in the Afternoon. I'm showing you a picture of pink tulips that I painted recently, and I wanted a companion painting to these pink tulips, so as you can see on the left, I chose to paint some red tulips along with it. And in order to do that, I used the flower color guide and found this picture of red tulips. And I wanted to use that to sketch out my new painting. So here we go. The first thing I did was to locate on my paper where I wanted the top, the middle, and the bottom tulips to go. And you have to put that first one in and then use it as a sort of reference for the second and third. And I didn't get it exactly right, which is fine. I didn't necessarily need to get it exactly right. But I did get the shapes that I wanted in, and I got them in the size that I wanted. And I think that's the important thing to concentrate on when you're first drawing the painting that you want to have on your paper. You need to concentrate first on the size, the shape, and the location of your subject matter. And often to do that, you have to put something down, and I think we often freeze when we're looking at a blank sheet of paper and we're not sure how to begin. Well, you begin by simply putting something down. And if it's not the right size or shape, erase it and do it again, so that you have at least one reference on your paper. And you can look at the picture that you have and kind of see, how big is this tulip on the page, and, reference it and think about it in that way. All right, so then I painted I drew in the last one, and this is before the stems and the leaves go in and all of that. Although I will begin to draw the stems and the leaves, I want to be able to see where I'm going with all of this. So the first thing and the most important thing is the flower itself. And now for the stems. The stems go in, and again, they don't have to be exactly and precisely in the same place that they are in the picture. But, it's often helpful to get them as close as possible. I went ahead and drew in the leaves. Didn't think that you'd care to watch me do that. But the leaves, it's the same thing. You look at your reference, you see about where the leaves start and stop, and you draw them in that way. Now, this is a color that I mixed using 1 part alizarin crimson, 2 parts alizarin crimson and 1 part burnt sienna. And it made this most gorgeous red. And, it was kind of a true red, but it had just a little hint of that darker, almost burnt brown in there that I think added to the richness of the red. Really enjoyed mixing that, but I mixed way too much, and so I'm literally taking it off of the palette knife that I used to mix the paint. But that's okay. I have used that color lots since because I really liked it. And what I'm doing here is just putting in the background colors. You don't have to get everything in right now. Swipe out a little highlight there, and then just kind of fill in the rest of it with the color that's going to be the lightest red that you're going to have in this flower. So there are my highlights for it. And let that dry, or just move on to the second flower. Oh, and there I had a nice little accident which if you fix it quickly, it's not a problem. Because watch how this just wipes right up. So especially if you don't have a staining paint, and I don't think I had a staining paint on there, but if you do, just get it up as quickly as you can, and chances are it won't leave a noticeable mark anywhere. So once again, this is just the background color of this flower. I am going to add the highlight by simply lifting out some of the red. And when I did that, the highlight seemed a little too stark for me, and so I started messing with it a little bit, which, people will tell you, oh, don't mess with it once you've done. But of course you're going to mess with it. I mess with my stuff all the time. It's okay. Just, leave the highlight in there. Eventually you're going to need that nice bright highlight. And I think that's probably plenty bright, what I have right there. But the highlight itself on the picture will help you decide how much you need to take out. And now for the final tulip on the bottom, same method. We're going to block in most of the color and pull out some of the highlights. So this is a very simple technique, and you can use it for almost any subject matter. You want to, with watercolor, of course, you're trying to work from the lightest color to the darkest color, which may be counterintuitive if you're just beginning, because we're used to putting down the dark colors and then adding highlights. But in watercolor, we leave the highlights. We put those down first and leave them as negative space when we paint. And like I said, that can be really counterintuitive. So it takes some thought and some preparation to do that. And what I'm doing now is really just putting down that base layer of red, which when it dries a lot lighter than what you're seeing here. And it's going to be sort of the highlight color for this tulip. All right, now let's speed it up just a little bit, and I'm going to show you putting in some of the darker tones, some of the shadow tones. And I worked on this for a while. A lot of artists, it seems that they can just slap the paint down and it turns out so beautiful. And this is just not me at all. I have to think about it. I have to really think about it and work on it. And sometimes I'll stop in the middle of a painting. I'll go find a scrap piece of paper and I'll try to paint what I want on my page and then go back to the page. So I'm not one of these people who's just, prolifically turning out one painting after another, day after day, that is saleable. Nah, that's not me at all. And if that's not you, then you're in the right place, because there's no judgment here. Take your time. Make adjustments. Think about what you're doing. Go practice for a minute and then come back. My paintings take me sometimes 2 or 3 days because I'm walking away from them constantly, letting them dry, coming back to them with a fresh perspective. You can also see here that puddle of paint that I made. I finally used all the paint off of my little off my little mixing tool there, and I ended up going for the puddle that I made. I really love this color. It's such a rich, beautiful red. It's often true when painting flowers that the folds of the petals will have a dark shadow. And to make that dark shadow, I often use just a much more concentrated consistency of the paint color that I'm using. But you can also add a bit of the colors opposite. So for example, you could put a little bit of a deep green in there, like maybe a hunter green or a hooker's green or something like that, just a touch, and then maybe add a touch of brown as well, or black, and that's going to give you a nice shadow color. But I'd say with red and green, be careful, because I have never gotten a good gray shade out of red and green. I've never gotten a good shadow color. You're going to get brown, and brown can make a flower especially look like there's a dead spot on the petal, you know, like it dried out and you didn't give it enough water or something. And, you know, so it's also nice to have on hand something like a neutral tint or Payne's gray or even ivory black, and just add just the tiniest spot of that along with the deeper consistency of your color, the thicker consistency of your color, so that you get a nice shadow color. And a lot of people will tell you, please don't use gray to make your shadows, but it can be a good companion to using your opposite color, you know, in with, like using the green in with the red, if you don't want it to look just brown. Some colors work better than others with making gray, and red and green really are not very good at making a gray or a shadow color. They just make brown. So give that a try and see if it doesn't help out your shadow colors a little bit. Also, I discovered something interesting, and it's not like I discovered it. I was taught this. You can mix something like an ivory black with yellow and get a lovely olive green. And I didn't know that you could do that. So I've been using that little trick as well. These leaves, these green leaves, are more of a sap green, and I did use some Green Apatite Genuine in with it. And, you know, a little bit of brown here and there, or a little bit of another color that is going to help to mute the green a little bit. Even though greens in nature often are not that muted. I mean, people talk about, they put sap green on their palette and then they say, this green is not really found in nature. I beg to differ. It most assuredly is. In fact, you go out there and look at a nice green lawn, it is sap green. That's the color that you've got. It's almost a lime green. And trees, you know, in the summertime, and especially in the early spring, have these vivid greens on them. It's just that it doesn't always look good on a watercolor painting. So people say to you, well, this doesn't really occur in nature, so mute it down a little bit. Well, it does occur in nature, but your painting is your own. If you want to mute it down, then mute it down, because maybe it looks better on paper a little bit muted. And that's the way I look at it. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you that sap green doesn't exist in nature. It most assuredly does. It's all over the place. And just pulling down this undercoating, really. This is that initial light coat of green, and it will be changed, and it will be, I will put more shadow colors on it as soon as it dries, or I can also do it wet on wet. And I think, in fact, here I did do some wet on wet stuff, but first I just wanted to lay down all of the colors that I needed for the green leaves. And here a lot of that has dried. I kind of let that dry out. There was a little bit of dampness still to the paper. So a little damp, a little wet on damp, and you get a nice soft edge on your shadow. If you go wet on wet, it's just going to bleed all over the place, and you're going to have, once again, you're going to have just one color on that leaf, and it's going to be your shadow color, and you'll have to lift out your highlight if you want it to be pronounced. So you have to let that paper dry just a little bit. And by the way, I'm using, for one of the first times in my life, I'm using a hot press paper. This is Beihong or something like that. I cannot pronounce it, but they have such a good line of papers, and I love using their stuff, and it's not too expensive. And I think it's got to be out of China. Baohong. If you want to find that, I think you can find it on just about any art supply site, and on Amazon and all of that good stuff. But yeah, giving that a try. At least I think that's what this paper is. If it's not the hot press paper, then it's a wood pulp paper. Right this minute, I can't remember which one I used. But they both had a smooth texture, so I'm not sure it matters. Although the Beihong is 100% cotton, and that does make a difference, I think. They're affordable. You should give those a try if you haven't tried those. And I believe they also make Academy, but I'm not sure. That might be a different company. But really, you should give this a try. It's affordable and good paper. Also, don't be afraid to move your paper around. If you do a better job pulling your paintbrush one certain way, then turn your painting around so that you can pull your paintbrush that way. Don't worry about, if you tape it down, that's a little hard to do. But if you do tape it down, then just tape it down onto a board that you can pick up and move. That's the way to solve that problem. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, if you would please just give me a quick thumbs up and maybe subscribe.